I took a deep breath, smoothing my hands over my navy blue skirt suit as I stepped into the bustling state building lobby. Today was the big day, my interview for the senior correspondent position at the governor's office. This opportunity could be a game changer for my career. As a single mom, balancing work and raising my 8-year-old daughter Haley was a constant juggling act, but I was determined to make it work. The assistant at the front desk greeted me with a polite smile. "Miss Carter, the governor's team is ready for you upstairs," I nodded, mustering my most confident expression. "Thank you, I'm ready." As I made my way to the elevators, my phone vibrated in my purse, probably Haley checking in from school. I pulled it out to check the caller ID, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Haley's number, but much too early for her to be out already. "Mom, please come home. I heard everything." Haley's small voice trembled through the speaker, laced with fear. "What do you mean, sweetie? What happened?" "It's Keith. He hurt me. I heard him talking about something bad." The world around me seemed to freeze as the weight of her words sank in. Keith, my charismatic boyfriend of 6 months, had always been so warm and caring towards Haley, but the terror in her voice was unmistakable. "Haley, I'm on my way right now," I said, my voice shaking. "Stay hidden and don't let Keith see you, okay?" Without a second thought, I bolted out of the building, the governor's interview forgotten. My mind raced as I jumped into my car, scenarios of what could have happened flashing through my mind. How could I have been so blind? Keith had seemed like the perfect guy, kind, successful, even getting along well with my ex-husband Peter for Haley's sake. But now, my little girl's words echoed in my ears, a sickening pit forming in my stomach. I had to get to her, and fast. I burst through the front door of our modest suburban home, my heart pounding. "Haley? Haley, where are you?" A small figure emerged from the hallway closet, tears streaming down her face. Haley ran into my arms, trembling. "Mommy, I was so scared." I held her tight, stroking her hair. "It's okay, baby. I'm here now. What happened?" Haley sniffled, her little hands clutching my blouse. "Keith came home early from work. Spat. He was yelling on the phone about some money problems. Then he started throwing things around the living room." A chill ran down my spine. In all our months together, I had never seen that side of Keith. "I tried to stay quiet in my room," Haley continued, "but then he came in and grabbed my arm really hard." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing angry red marks. White-hot fury coursed through me at the sight of those marks on my baby's delicate skin. How could he lay a hand on her? "Haley, I'm so sorry," I whispered fiercely, holding her close. "This will never happen again, I promise." The front door opened and Keith walked in, his expression changing from confusion to feigned concern when he saw us huddled together. "Jenna? What's going on?" I met his gaze with steel in my eyes. "How dare you put your hands on my daughter?" Keith's face contorted in mock bewilderment. "What are you talking about?" Haley must be making things up again for attention. He knelt down, his voice taking on that sickly, sweet tone he used to manipulate. "Isn't that right, princess? You know I'd never hurt you." Haley shrank back against me, her eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I knew her terror was real, and the man I thought I knew was a monster. "Get out," I snarled at Keith. "Get out of my house and don't ever come near us again." His expression darkened, the mask slipping. "You'll regret this, Jenna. I can make your life hell." Before I could respond, the front door opened again, and Keith's 16-year-old son Ethan walked in, his headphones on and oblivious to the confrontation. "What's going on?" he asked flatly, taking in the scene. Keith straightened, his charming smile returning like a light switch. "Nothing, son, just a little misunderstanding. Why don't you go on up to your room?" Ethan shrugged and disappeared down the hallway. I watched him go, a sinking feeling in my gut. If Keith could put on such a convincing act for his own child, what else was he capable of hiding? "This isn't over," Keith hissed, grabbing his coat. "You're going to be sorry you crossed me." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. I held Haley close, my mind whirling. What had I gotten us into? And how could I protect my little girl from the storm I sensed was coming? After Keith's explosive confrontation, I knew I needed backup to protect Haley and myself. I texted my ex-husband Peter, knowing he would drop everything for our daughter's safety. Within the hour, he was at my doorstep, his face etched with concern. "Jenna? What's going on? Are you two okay?" I quickly recounted the incident with Keith as Haley clung to my side, her eyes still red from crying. Peter's expression darkened with barely contained fury. "That son of a bitch laid his hands on my little girl?" His fists clenched. "I'll kill him." "Pete, please." I put a hand on his arm, trying to calm him. As much as I understood his anger, violence wouldn't solve anything. We need to handle this carefully for Haley's sake. He took a deep breath, nodding reluctantly. Peter had always been protective of us, even after our divorce 2 years ago. I was grateful he was still in our lives. The next morning, I headed into work with Haley by my side, determined to investigate Keith's background more thoroughly. I pulled my tech-savvy colleague Tony aside. "Tony, I need your help digging into someone's digital footprint," I said in a low voice. "It's sensitive." Tony's eyes widened behind his thick glasses, but he simply nodded. "Say no more. Bring me what you've got, and I'll get to work." Back at my desk, I pulled up every scrap of information I had on Keith. Emails, phone records, social media profiles, anything that could provide a window into the truth behind his carefully crafted persona. As I compiled the files, movement at my periphery caught my eye. I glanced up to see Haley standing beside my desk, clutching her well-worn stuffed bunny. "Mommy, when is Keith coming back?" she asked in a small voice. My heart clenched at her innocent question. I got up and knelt in front of her, taking her little hands in mine. "Baby Keith, he's not a good man. You were right to be scared of him." I struggled to find the right words, my protective instincts raging. "He won't be coming back, ever. I won't let him hurt you again." Haley's lower lip trembled, but she nodded bravely. In that moment, I silently vowed to do whatever it took to keep this little girl safe from harm. Later that evening, Tony came to my apartment with a grim expression. "Jenna, you were right to be suspicious of this Keith guy." He pulled out a stack of printed documents, phone records, bank statements, even court filings from other states. I did some deep digging, and it's not pretty. Tony laid out a trail of evidence, a history of debt and unpaid loans, allegations of fraud and intimidation from ex-business partners. It painted a picture of a manipulative, vindictive man constantly chasing money through shady schemes. "There's more," Tony continued grimly. "I found 2 ex-wives who filed restraining orders claiming emotional and financial abuse. One of them, she dropped off the grid about 5 years ago." A chill shot down my spine. Had Keith's twisted games gone even further than we realized? I thought of Haley's terrified face, and my blood boiled. "We need to take this to the police," I stated, my voice hardening with resolve. "And we need an ironclad case to put this bastard away for good." Tony and I exchanged a determined look. For my little girl's sake, I would burn Keith's life to the ground and salt the earth. He had inexcusably threatened the most precious thing in my world, and he was going to pay. Over the next few days, I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Haley's sake while Tony and I continued digging into Keith's past. The more we uncovered, the sicker I felt. Unpaid debts, allegations of fraud, and a string of scorned exes in his wake. Just how deep did this man's depravity run? One evening, there was a heavy knock at the door. I tensed, pulling Haley closer to me on the couch before getting up to answer it. To my surprise, it was Keith standing on the doorstep, an unsettling smile plastered on his face. "Hello, Jenna. Aren't you going to invite me in?" His voice was sickly sweet, but I could see the cold threat simmering in his eyes. "You're not welcome here," I stated firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to stay away from me and my daughter." Keith's expression hardened. "That's no way to speak to your boyfriend, Jenna, after all we've been through together?" He took a step forward, and I instinctively moved to block him from entering. "We're through, Keith. I know what kind of man you really are." I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. The lies, the manipulation, threatening a child, it's sick. A muscle twitched in his jaw, but that eerie smile didn't waver. "You don't know what you're talking about, babe. Haley's just a troubled little girl looking for attention. Maybe I was a little rough with her, but she had it coming, disobeying me like that." White-hot fury lanced through me at his casual dismissal of abusing my daughter. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out physically. "Get off my property before I call the police, you psychopath." Keith's gaze flicked over my shoulder, catching sight of Haley peeking around the corner. His smile widened, sending a chill down my spine. You'll regret this, Jenna. You have no idea what I'm capable of. With that ominous warning, he turned and strode back to his car, leaving me shaken. I quickly shut and locked the door, pulling Haley into a fierce hug. It's okay, baby. He's not going to hurt you again, I promise. My words sounded hollow even to my own ears. If Keith was willing to threaten a child, what other depraved acts was he capable of to regain control? The next morning, I arrived at work to find Tony waiting anxiously at my desk. Jenna, you'd better see this. He pulled up a series of images, screenshots of disturbing internet searches from Keith's laptop. Things no sane person should ever be looking for, much less the man dating a single mother. My stomach turned. There's more, Tony said grimly. I accessed the cloud backup for your home computer and, well, see for yourself. With a few keystrokes, he pulled up a video feed from inside my living room, a hidden camera I never knew existed. I felt violated all over again, watching mundane family moments playing out, all secretly recorded by that monster. We have to go to the police now, I stated, feeling numb. With this evidence, they can put him away for a long time. Tony nodded in solemn agreement, but something nagged at the back of my mind. If Keith was this unhinged and desperate, what other surprises might he have in store for the people trying to take him down? I made a call to Peter, knowing we'd need all the backup we could get. There was no going back now. For Haley's safety, I had to dismantle Keith's life, piece by sickening piece. With the damning evidence Tony uncovered, we knew we had to act fast before Keith could make his next move. Peter agreed to take Haley somewhere safe while Tony and I solidified our case against that monster. Are you sure about this, Jenna? Peter asked, concern etched on his face as he held our daughter's hand. This guy seems capable of anything. I don't want you putting yourself in danger. I have to do this, Pete, I stated firmly, for Haley's sake. Keith needs to go away for a long, long time where he can't hurt anyone else. Peter nodded reluctantly. Just be careful, and call me the second you need backup, you hear? After they left, Tony and I got to work compiling every shred of proof we had. Bank records, court filings, the recordings from the hidden camera. It was a dizzying array of manipulation and deceit. Wait, there's more, Tony said, his eyes widening at his computer screen. I think I found something big. He turned the monitor to show me a series of money transfers to an offshore account I'd never seen before. And not just any money. These amounts were huge, in the millions. What the hell is this? I breathed. Where is Keith getting this kind of cash? Tony shook his head grimly. I don't know, but it can't be legal. And look at this. He scrolled through more documents, fake IDs, fraudulent passports, all under different aliases linked to those shady transactions. A sickening realization began to dawn on me. You think he's been running some kind of long con, scamming and manipulating innocent people out of their life savings? The pieces were starting to fall into place. Keith's constantly shifting business ventures, the trail of embittered exes, his quick attachment to me and Haley despite his shady past. He'd simply been looking for his next big score, and I'd let him get dangerously close to my family. We need to take this to the authorities right away, I stated, feeling numb, before he gets tipped off and tries to run. Tony nodded grimly. I'll make some calls. We're going to bury this bastard. I forced myself to stay focused over the next few hours as we marshaled our evidence and contacted the police, but my mind kept drifting to Keith's earlier threat, his cold eyes boring into me. What else was he capable of to protect his con? A sudden knock at the apartment door made me jump. I tensed, reaching slowly for the baseball bat I now kept within reach at all times. Who is it? It's me, Ethan. Keith's son? The teenage boy's muffled voice came through the door. I need to talk to you about my dad. My blood ran cold. Had Keith sent his own child here to threaten me, or worse? I gripped the bat tighter as I cracked open the door a few inches. Ethan looked past me into the apartment, his expression unreadable. I know what my dad's really been up to. The lies, the money. I want to help you take him down. I searched his face for any hint of deception, but his steely gaze seemed sincere, if haunted. Slowly, I opened the door the rest of the way. Tell me everything, I said grimly. If Ethan was truly on our side, he could be the key to finally destroying Keith's web of schemes once and for all. For Haley's sake, and every other innocent life that monster had shattered, I would make sure Keith paid the ultimate price. No mercy, no half measures. It was time to end this. With Ethan's help, the pieces finally fell into place. The kid may have been aloof, but he wasn't blind to his father's twisted games. Turns out Ethan had been collecting evidence against Keith for years, secret recordings, financial documents, you name it. I always knew there was something off about him, Ethan explained, running a hand through his shaggy hair. The constant moving, the shady business deals, the way he treated women like they were disposable. I just didn't know how far it really went until recently. Tony and I exchanged a grim look as we pored over Ethan's trove of damning evidence. It was a dizzying paper trail of fraud, emotional abuse, and ruined lives in Keith's wake. We have to take this public, I stated, feeling that familiar fire burning in my chest. Expose every last one of his sins to the world so he can never hurt anyone again. Are you sure that's wise? Ethan asked hesitantly. My dad, he's capable of anything when he's backed into a corner. If he gets tipped off, he could run, or worse. I thought of Haley's terrified face that day, the marks on her little arm from Keith's vicious grip. No, I was done playing his twisted game by his rules. Your father's reign of terror ends now, I said, my voice hardening. We're going to take him down in a big way, live for the whole world to see. No more hiding in the shadows. With grim determination, we got to work. First order of business, find out where Keith's next big public appearance would be. The slime ball never missed a chance to preen for the cameras. Sure enough, Tony discovered Keith was headlining some big corporate event in a few days' time, rubbing elbows with local bigwigs and politicians. Perfect. Next, we looped in some other key players, Peter to help keep Haley safe and secure, and Linda, one of Keith's ex-wives who had barely escaped his clutches with her life years ago. She was more than eager to help bring him down once and for all. I'll be there with everything I have on that monster, she stated grimly over the phone. It's long past time he faced real consequences. Finally, the big day arrived. I could feel the adrenaline thrumming through my veins as we got into position at the convention center where Keith's event was happening. Peter and Haley were safely tucked away, but I knew my little girl was watching over the live stream we had set up. Keith took the stage, all false bravado and that trademark smarmy grin, utterly oblivious to the reckoning that was coming. I caught Ethan's eye across the room and gave him a nod. Let the fireworks begin. With a few keystrokes, Tony hijacked the big screens flanking the stage. Suddenly, Keith's smiling face was replaced by images and footage documenting his endless trail of sins. The fraud, the abuse, the conning of innocent victims out of their life savings. I watched the color drain from his face as he realized what was happening. No, you can't do this. But it was too late. Linda was already striding towards the stage, her face contorted with years of pent-up fury. Hello, Keith, she spat venomously. Remember me? As he sputtered and backpedaled, more damning evidence filled the screens. Transcripts, audio recordings, all of it leading back to him. There was no wiggle room, no escape hatch this time. I stood tall, staring Keith down as security finally moved in to subdue his thrashing form. This is for my daughter, you sick son of a bitch, I called out, loud enough for the cameras to catch. Your reign of terror is over. Keith met my gaze then, and I saw the mask finally crack, revealing the depraved, soulless monster beneath. But I didn't flinch. I was done being afraid. As they dragged him away, I felt something loosen in my chest. A weight finally lifted after all these months of living in fear. My little girl was safe, and that twisted bastard would never be able to hurt another innocent life again. The days after our explosive expose of Keith's crimes were a whirlwind. Giving statements to the police, fielding a frenzy of media inquiries, and trying to shield Haley from the spotlight as much as possible. But through it all, I felt an immense sense of relief and vindication. That monster was finally behind bars where he could never hurt another innocent family again. Peter had been an absolute rock, keeping Haley occupied and reassuring her that the nightmare was over. I don't know what I would have done without his steady presence. You did it, Jenna, he said simply one evening as we watched Haley playing in the living room, mercifully oblivious to the weight we had all carried. You saved her. I managed a weary smile, suddenly feeling the full extent of the emotional trauma. We saved her, Pete. If you hadn't been there for us. He gave my hand a comforting squeeze, and I felt a pang of regret that things hadn't worked out between us as a couple. Peter was a good man, a great father, but I had been too obsessed with my career to make our marriage a priority when it mattered most. At least now, in the aftermath of this chaos, we could be united as co-parents for Haley's well-being. A firm knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. I tensed automatically. Too many months of living on edge, I supposed. But when I pulled it open, I saw Ethan's familiar, brooding expression. "Hey!" He shuffled awkwardly on the doorstep. "I wanted to check in, see how you guys were doing." I studied Keith's son carefully. He had been through his own private hell, witnessing his father's depravity up close over the years. But in the end, Ethan had chosen the moral path, despite the risks. "We're coping," I replied honestly. "It's going to take some time to feel really safe again, you know?" Ethan nodded, looking pained. "Yeah, I get that." He drew a deep, shuddering breath. "Look, I know I can't make up for the shit my dad put you through, but if you'll let me, I want to be here, you know? For Haley and—" He trailed off, his jaw tightening. In that moment, I saw it, the longing for some semblance of family, of stability, underneath his prickly exterior. This poor kid had been starved of that his whole life, thanks to his father's toxicity. On impulse, I reached out and pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into the embrace with a quiet sigh. "You're a part of this family now, kiddo," I murmured fiercely. "We'll get through this together." There would still be plenty of hard days ahead, to be sure, wounds to mend, trust to rebuild. But in that moment, I felt a sense of hope and determination well up in my chest. We had taken down the biggest demon of all. Whatever other battles awaited, we would face them head-on, unafraid, our little family of survivors bound by our scars yet standing tall. When I finally released Ethan, I saw the glimmer of tears in his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away with a gruff nod. That was okay. We had all the time in the world now to learn how to heal and find our strength together. "Come on in," I said with a soft smile, gesturing inside. "There's someone who's going to be real happy to see her new big brother." As Haley came bounding over, her face lighting up at the sight of Ethan, I knew we were going to be all right. The nightmare was over. A new chapter was just beginning. In the weeks after Keith's dramatic downfall, life slowly began to return to normal, or at least some semblance of it. The nonstop media frenzy died down, the police wrapped up their investigation, and that sick, twisted chapter was finally closed. Of course, the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. I could see it in Haley's eyes sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking, that flicker of residual fear and uncertainty. My poor baby had her innocence shattered at such a tender age. But she was a resilient little fighter, my girl. With me, Peter, and even Ethan rallying around her, she found her sunshine again, bit by bit. Ethan, I'll admit, I had my doubts about him sticking around at first. The kid had been through his own private trauma thanks to his scumbag father. Who could blame him if he wanted to just cut and run from this ugly chapter? Instead, he stunned me by digging his heels in, determined to build a real relationship with Haley and be the supportive big brother figure she needed. They grew inseparable those first few months, playing endless rounds of make-believe and watching corny movies together. I'll never forget the night I caught them giggling secretly in the living room, Ethan's face unguardedly joyful as Haley smeared makeup all over his cheeks. Just a couple of silly kids being kids, without a care in the world. In that moment, my heart swelled with overwhelming gratitude that we had each other to lean on through the darkness. Of course, Peter was instrumental as well, my eternally patient ex-husband and co-parent. I lost count of how many times he dropped everything to rush over, whether it was fielding a night terror from Haley or just giving me a shoulder to cry on. "You don't have to thank me, Jen," he said simply one evening as we sat on the porch, enjoying the tranquility. "I'll always be here for you two. That's never going to change." I felt a pang of wistfulness, thinking of what might have been if I had prioritized my little family over my all-consuming career years ago. Peter was a good man, a good father, maybe in another life, but I pushed those thoughts aside, giving him a grateful smile. "I know, and that means everything, Pete. Really." As the summer days stretched on peacefully, I found myself slowly shedding the weight of fear and hypervigilance I'd carried for so long. The smiles came more easily, the laughter rang out more freely in our humble little home. One evening, I was putting Haley to bed when she stopped me shyly. "Mommy, can I give this to Ethan, to say thank you for being so nice?" She was clutching one of her prized possessions, a delicate wind chime made of bright seashells that Peter had brought back from a vacation years ago. Despite her young age, Haley understood the significance of such a gesture. I felt a lump form in my throat as I stroked her soft hair. "Of course you can, baby. I'm sure he'll love it." As I left her bedroom, I could see Ethan lingering in the hallway, his brooding expression softening just a touch as he watched his new little sister drift off to sleep. In that moment, I knew we had finally formed our own little family, a bit unconventional, a bit scarred, but bound by cords tougher than blood, loyal, protective, and absolutely unbreakable against any storm. I caught Ethan's eye and smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over me. The nightmare was finally over. All that remained was the warm, brilliant promise of new horizons ahead. As I drifted off to sleep that night, the gentle chiming of Haley's gift to Ethan echoed faintly, like a lullaby ushering in hopeful dreams. Our future was wide open, the possibilities endless, and we would face it together, steadfast survivors all.